still in force. Under letters patent, various kind of jurisdictions are conferred on High Court. Ordinary civil jurisdiction, ordinary criminal jurisdiction, admiralty jurisdiction, testamentary jurisdiction. So all these jurisdictions have been conferred by letters patent. If you try to search whether writ jurisdiction was conferred by letters patent or not, you will not find that in the letters patent. As I said, that this is merely because these high courts derived the authority of original abolished Supreme Court, which were equated by earlier letters patent of 1774 to issue traditional writs. Otherwise, even letters patent are absent on the aspect whether writ jurisdiction, original traditional writ jurisdiction is possessed by the high courts established under the letters patent. So it is neither a ordinary civil jurisdiction. Ordinary civil jurisdiction means entertaining civil suit, etc. Because Bombay High Court, Calcutta High Courts, they have been conferred with civil jurisdiction. So this, that is ordinary civil jurisdiction. Then ordinary criminal jurisdiction is also conferred. Extraordinary civil jurisdiction is also conferred under letters patent clause 13. Clause 13 says that extraordinary civil jurisdiction means that High Court will have power to withdraw any case from the trial court. It has a power to transfer one case from another court, one court to another court. So that is known as extraordinary civil jurisdiction. So it is not an extraordinary civil, of course, many a time it has been described as extraordinary original jurisdiction, but my view and my respectful submission is this, that it is merely a special jurisdiction of summary nature. That is a most apt description of Article 226. You cannot equate with the extraordinary civil jurisdiction as provided under the letters patent. It would create confusion. So it is rather better to avoid description of this jurisdiction to be extraordinary civil jurisdiction. I would say that it's a jurisdiction of special kind and it's a summary jurisdiction. Now, this original jurisdiction, because it is an original jurisdiction, many a time arguments have been raised that Article 226 High Court is usually reviewing the orders of the authority or court or tribunals, because the court matters are not coming up before the High Court usually for the first time. If you file a petition against the order of the Commissioner of Customs or Income Tax Commissioner, there is already an order of quasi-judicial authority which is being judicially reviewed and examined. So many a time contentions have been raised that it is a revisional jurisdiction, but it is not at least original jurisdiction. Now this aspect has some relevance because letters patent appeal under clause 15 is available only if learned single judge of a high court has exercised original jurisdiction only. If learned judge has exercised revisional jurisdiction, then letters patent appeal is not maintainable. Similarly, if the learned single judge has exercised power of superintendence or criminal jurisdiction, then also letters patent appeal is not maintainable under clause 15. Therefore, it is very essential to find out what is the nature of Article 226, whether it is revisional jurisdiction, power of superintendence, or it is appellate jurisdiction. This question was examined by Privy Council in the judgment of Hamid Hassan versus Banwari Lal Roy. That is reported in AIR 1947, Privy Council page 90, where it has been stated that though court may be called upon to examine the order of authority, courts or tribunal, etc., but it is not a revisional jurisdiction or appellate jurisdiction. it is a jurisdiction of original nature. Even while issuing writ of certiorari or quo warranto, etc., High Court is exercising original jurisdiction. Then there is another case after post-constitution judgment, that is State of UP versus Dr. Vijay Anand, AIR 1963, page 824. There also it has been stated that it is original jurisdiction, whether court is issuing writ of certiorari or issuing a mandamus or any other appropriate or any other directions. I would not confine. I would request all of you to keep in mind that writ jurisdiction is only a small segment of a very wide power. Article 226 don't equate this jurisdiction with writ jurisdiction. It is much more. As I said that it starts with High Court shall have power to issue directions. What kind of directions? It depends on the facts of the case. Or order, or writ, and by phraseology including writs in the nature of etc. So the phraseology itself makes it very clear that it is not a writ jurisdiction. It is a writ jurisdiction. Of course, it is also not a traditional writ jurisdiction because High Court is conferred to issue this kind of writs not in their traditional form. It says in the nature of, not original writs. So forget habeas corpus, forget certiorari, forget mandamus. It is not to be issued. Only thing is, what is required to be issued is appropriate direction or appropriate order. And if you think or if you choose appropriate, you may say that, okay, writ in the nature of certiorari may be issued or writ in the nature of mandamus may be issued. But there, I am coming to this point that there is again a myth or misconception that a petition under Article 226 must pray for a particular writ. I entirely disagree with this. Because when Article 226 itself does not say like this, why should we confine our petition to a particular writ and create complication and give a hand to the court to dismiss your case on technicalities that were prevalent in England? Of course, in 1954, Honorable Supreme Court made it clear in Basappa's case, AIR 1954, page 440, T.C. Basappa versus Nagappa's case, that we have not inherited the traditional writs or writs in their traditional form. Our jurisdiction is much wider. And most important observation is that we are not bound by the technicalities of the writs that were prevalent in England. So, word in the nature of is very important. It has also some historical background and it has some historical aspect in the Constituent Assembly debates. Now, you would wonder why this word in the nature of has been inserted in Article 226. The reason is, before the Constitution came to be framed, there was already a change in English system of issuance of traditional writs. By one enactment in England which is known as Administration of Justice Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1938, the word writ was already omitted in England prior to the coming into force of the Constitution of India. So when this article was being debated, our Article 226 was original Article 202 when it was being discussed in the Constituent Assembly debates. So when this was being debated in Constituent Assembly, Article 202, the discussion did take place whether we should borrow the traditional writs in their original form. The proposal was negatived by Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. Kanhaiya Lal Munshi, and Mr. Aladi Swami Iyer. There was a suggestion from Mr. Kamath, H.V. Kamath, but ultimately Kamath suggested that we should not use particular words or particular writs by name. But then taking note of this in the nature of has been inserted, because by that time that provisions of Administration of Justice 1938 Act has already removed the word writ as a prefix from all writs except habeas corpus. Habeas corpus was considered to be a very sacrosanct writ because it vitally concerned with the vindication of liberty of an individual. So it was really a very great remedy since issuance of Magna Carta. So writ remained as a prefix in respect of writ of habeas corpus only. It ceased to be writ even prior to this constitution came into force. So the constitutional makers were aware of these things, and therefore they thought it fit that we don't want original writs here. High Court should be given or conferred with the power to do justice in whatever appropriate manner. It should be allowed free hand. But this is merely an indication that, okay, we are conferring a very wide power of issuing directions, order, etc., writ, etc. But you will have also power, including writ in the nature of habeas corpus, mandamus, etc., etc. So the word in the nature has very relevance, and whenever you are pitted in the court with the technicality, sometimes court said that you have not made tribunal as a party respondent. You have not done certain things which is required under the traditional writ before you claim in the court of law that certain formalities or certain things ought to have been done. Then you can say that, sir, we have not borrowed the traditional writs. The court can do justice in appropriate manner, and the jurisdiction is not confined, because in the nature of phrase is very clear. So it gives sufficient free hand to the High Court to mold prayer or to do justice in appropriate manner. So this is one aspect. I know Mr. Kavina is here. Your session was to commence at 11, but I may take just 10-15 minutes more because we started a little later. So now another aspect, we without thinking, invariably whenever we file a petition, we mechanically invoke Article 14, Article 19, Article 21. Most of us are laboring under the impression that we are constitutional practitioners. In every petition, we are really concerned with the fundamental rights of the citizen. Now, that is also not exactly correct, I would say. Though you may be invoking Article 14, 19, 21, but in most of the cases, we are not really concerned with the fundamental rights, because Article 13 simply says, Article 13 of the Constitution of India says that no law made by the Constitution, after the Constitution came into force, which is contrary to the fundamental right, shall be valid. So whenever we approach the High Court, we are not concerned with the examination of validity of any law. We are really either concerned with the examination of order of the authority, which may be a quasi-judicial authority, which may be an administrative authority, which may be a tribunal. So you simply come here and request the court to examine the validity of this. Where is the question of fundamental right here? Why do you invoke Article 14, 19, 21? Supreme Court has long back in Ujjambai's case and followed by Naresh Sridhar Mirajkar's case has said that judicial orders or quasi-judicial orders cannot usually violate fundamental rights. Now, in most of the petitions, you are challenging the order of the authority exercising quasi-judicial power. The order itself is clear. You will have to simply challenge it on the available grounds. But somehow we have been trained like this, that we have to invoke Article 14, 19, 21 and 226. I usually, when challenge the order of the tribunal or quasi-judicial authority, I usually invoke only Article 226. Because Supreme Court has long back in 1963, Ujjambai's case said that judicial or quasi-judicial order cannot violate fundamental right. And while holding that, Honorable Supreme Court has relied upon the judgment of the US Court, United States Court, in the case of Snowden versus U, 1943, 321 US page 1. In that case, the Honorable Supreme Court of United States said that the Constitution doesn't guarantee uniformity in decision. So you cannot expect, and if any decision is illegal, you cannot say that it is violative of my fundamental right. But somehow the basic training, during this basic training period, we have not been briefed about the correct scope of Article 226. Otherwise, we will not tend to commit such mistakes. Of course, I put here one exception, because one exception is carved out in Ujjambai case and followed by Naresh Sridhar Mirajkar and now Radheshyam versus Chabinath, etc. That in a given case, even order passed by quasi-judicial authority or judicial authority can be challenged as violative of fundamental right. Now, what are such instances? I may give one or two instances. First instance is that a particular authority is conferred with jurisdiction to